June 18, 2025. In the pre-dawn darkness off the Horn of Africa, 52 heavily armed Somali pirates operating from the Hobyo Harardhir syndicate made the most catastrophic miscalculation in maritime history. They boarded what appeared to be an ordinary Liberian-flagged cargo vessel, the MV Atlantic Supplier, transiting through the Gulf of Aden toward the Arabian Sea. Armed with PKM machine guns, RPG-29 launchers, and satellite phones connected to their intelligence network, they thought they'd captured another multi-million-dollar prize. What they didn't know was that beneath the weathered paint and false cargo manifests, the Atlantic Supplier was actually a classified U.S. Navy auxiliary vessel, designation TAC X-9, carrying nuclear reactor components, encrypted submarine navigation systems, and 1.2 million gallons of specialized reactor coolant destined for the USS Colorado, a Virginia-class attack submarine operating covertly in the Arabian Sea. The pirates had just seized the lifeline of America's most advanced underwater warfare platform, and in doing so, they'd triggered a countdown to their complete annihilation. Within seconds of the seizure, an encrypted burst transmission reached the USS Colorado's Combat Information Center 180 nautical miles away. The submarine's captain, a 22-year veteran of submarine warfare, read the flash traffic twice. His vessel needed those supplies within 96 hours or would be forced to surface and abandon its classified intelligence mission monitoring Iranian naval movements. But more critically, if the pirates discovered what they'd captured, the technology could end up in Tehran, Moscow, or Beijing within days. Subscribe and stay with us to discover what happens when pirates touch America's nuclear arsenal. June 18, 2025, 3:47 a.m. The Atlantic Supplier was making 14 knots through shipping lane Alpha 7 when radar operator Petty Officer Chen noticed something unusual. Multiple fast-moving contacts converging from 3 directions. Before he could sound general quarters, the first grappling hooks were already flying over the railings. The pirates had perfected their assault over years of successful hijackings. 5 motherships, each launching 2 attack skiffs, created a swarm formation impossible to evade. Within 90 seconds, fighters with AK-103s and captured M4 carbines were flooding the deck. The ship's security detail of 16 sailors, including 11 Americans and 5 British nationals, had trained for this scenario. But they were outnumbered 3-1. Master Chief Williams managed to activate 2 critical protocols before the bridge was overrun. First, the Scuttle King system, which would flood the ship's classified compartments in 6 hours unless overridden by a code stored only at NavCent. Second, a burst transmission containing a single phrase, Bent Spear, the code for compromised nuclear materials. The firefight lasted 7 minutes. 2 sailors manning M240B machine guns near the stern cut down 5 pirates before RPG fire forced them to retreat. Another defensive position near the superstructure held for 4 minutes until overwhelmed by crossfire from 3 directions. When the smoke cleared, 3 sailors were wounded, 1 critically. The crew retreated to the Citadel, a reinforced panic room deep within the ship, sealing themselves behind 4-inch steel blast doors. Above them, the pirate commander, a former Somali National Army colonel known as Red Scorpion, surveyed his prize. His network had been tracking shipping patterns for months, identifying vessels that traveled without escort. But when his men broke into the forward cargo hold and found containers marked with radiation symbols and U.S. Navy serial numbers, his celebration turned into something else entirely: opportunity. Red Scorpion immediately contacted his Iranian handlers via encrypted satellite phone. The conversation lasted 43 seconds. The Iranians promised $50 million for the cargo, no questions asked. He ordered his men to make maximum speed for their fortress, a fortified volcanic islet off the Puntland coast. They had no idea that 600 feet below them, the USS Colorado had just received execute authority for Operation HAMMERBLOW, and that every American military asset in the region was converging on their position like antibodies attacking a virus. What they also didn't know was that an MQ-4C Triton drone at 55,000 feet had been tracking them since the first rope hit the deck. At 3:58 a.m., 11 minutes after the hijacking, the USS Colorado went to ultra-quiet, descending to 650 feet while simultaneously launching 2 of its most classified assets, Manta autonomous underwater vehicles. These 60-foot unmanned submarines, each carrying 6 Mark 48 80-cap torpedoes, surged toward the surface at 40 knots, their guidance computing intercept vectors in real time. Above the waves, the response was already in motion. From the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group 340 miles north, 4 FA-18F Super Hornets launched into the darkness, each armed with AGM-154C joint standoff weapons and AGM-88G AARGM-ER anti-radiation missiles. Behind them, two EA-18G Growlers packed with ALQ-99 jamming pods prepared to blind every radar and communication system within 200 miles. The real hammer was already moving from Diego Garcia. Two B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, diverted from a training mission, carried 80 GBU-31J dams and one GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator each. Their target packages were being updated in real time by the National Reconnaissance Office. At Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti, 3 MH-47G Chinooks spun up, loading 75 operators from Naval Special Warfare Development Group, SEAL Team 6. These weren't ordinary SEALs. These were the same operators who had killed bin Laden, rescued Captain Phillips, and eliminated dozens of high-value targets. They had one mission: recover the nuclear materials at any cost. By 4:42 a.m., the Atlantic Supplier was now 22 nautical miles from Socotra Rock, the pirate stronghold. Thermal imaging from the Triton drone revealed the full scope of what awaited. Admiral Morrison, commanding 5th Fleet, made the call. Glass it. Everything. Leave nothing standing. At 5:21 a.m., the first Manta drone achieved firing position. The Mark 48 torpedo launched with barely a whisper, accelerating to 63 knots as it tracked toward the largest pirate mothership. The detonation registered on satellite infrared within seconds. 43 pirates were vaporized instantly. That was just the beginning. Like and subscribe if you stand with American naval power. Now witness what happens when pirates threaten nuclear security. At 5:24 a.m., the Gulf of Aden transformed into a killing field. 4 more Mark 48 torpedoes launched from the Manta drones found their targets in rapid succession. Each pirate vessel, loaded with fighters and stolen weapons, disappeared in towers of flame and seawater. Survivors were recovered or detained by follow-on forces. Remaining hostile contacts were neutralized. At 5:31 a.m., the Super Hornets released their first salvo. 4 AGM-154C joint standoff weapons glided silently towards Socotra Rock from 40 miles away. Their targets, the island's radar installations and communication arrays. The explosions were surgical, each one removing a piece of the pirates' eyes and ears. Then came the Chinooks, flying just 50 feet above the waves to avoid radar detection. The 75 SEAL Team 6 operators inside weren't coming to negotiate. Each operator carried an HK-416 assault rifle, Mark 13 sniper system, and enough ammunition to fight for hours. Their orders were simple: secure the nuclear materials, eliminate all resistance, leave no intelligence behind. As the Atlantic Supplier approached the island's hidden harbor, Red Scorpion made a desperate decision. He ordered his men to transfer the nuclear components to speedboats, planning to scatter them across multiple hiding spots. His men had barely opened the first container when the ocean itself seemed to rise up against them. The USS Colorado, still submerged at standoff range, held silent position while tracking the harbor. Its photonics mast and offboard ISR painted targets for fires across the force. From submerged launch tubes, 4 Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles lifted toward the island at 550 miles per hour. The first Tomahawk hit the main ammunition depot. The explosion was so massive it created a mushroom cloud visible from the Somali mainland. Secondary explosions rippled across the compound as thousands of stolen rockets, mortars, and artillery shells detonated in sequence. On the Atlantic Supplier's deck, 6 pirates trying to move a nuclear component container were cut down by precision fire from a SEAL sniper team that had fast-roped from a hovering Chinook. Within seconds, operators were flooding across the deck, their suppressors coughing in controlled pairs. Pirates fell where they stood, most never even seeing their attackers. Red Scorpion, cornered in the bridge with his last 4 bodyguards, tried to destroy the ship's navigation computer, potentially containing classified U.S. Navy routing data. A SEAL breacher blew the bridge door with a shaped charge. The firefight lasted 8 seconds. The bridge was secured and the command cell neutralized. At 5:52 a.m., with the ship secure, the B-2 Spirits arrived over Socotra Rock. They dropped their payload from 48,000 feet, precision JDAMs and a paired GBU-57 MOP strike aimed at hardened bunkers. For the next 4 minutes, the island ceased to exist as a military position. Every structure was obliterated. The volcanic rock itself cracked and split. Caves that had sheltered pirates for a generation collapsed, burying hundreds of fighters alive. The harbor facilities, built over 20 years of successful piracy, vanished in clouds of pulverized concrete and twisted steel. Patrol boats trying to flee were swatted from existence by additional Tomahawks launched from USS Colorado. By 6:15 a.m., where once stood the most fortified pirate stronghold in the Indian Ocean, there remained only smoking craters and shattered stone. The pirate base and harbor facilities were cratered and rendered unusable. No structure remained standing. Still watching, because the implications of what just happened would reshape maritime security forever. By 9:47 a.m., just over 6 hours after the hijacking began, the Atlantic supplier was under heavy escort toward a classified U.S. facility in Djibouti. The nuclear components were secure, verified intact by Department of Energy specialists who had been flown in by V-22 Osprey. The crew extracted from the Citadel was receiving medical treatment aboard the USS Eisenhower. The devastation assessment was staggering. In 6 hours, the United States had eliminated the entire Hobyo-Herard-Heer pirate confederation, 340 confirmed killed, in 23 attack boats and 5 motherships worth $45 million. Weapons stockpiles valued at over $120 million. The most sophisticated pirate communications center in Africa. But the real impact was measured in what didn't happen. The nuclear components, including reactor control assemblies worth $84 million, quantum navigation processors that wouldn't be publicly acknowledged for another decade, and cooling systems that took 2 years to manufacture, never left American control. Not a single classified document was compromised. Not one piece of technology reached hostile hands. Intelligence intercepts over the following days revealed panic across the criminal maritime world. Insurance rates for vessels transiting the Gulf of Aden dropped 45% within a week. Commercial shipping that had avoided these waters for years began returning. The Iranian handlers who had promised Red Scorpion $50 million were identified through NSA surveillance. Within 72 hours, their entire network in East Africa was rolled up by coordinated strikes from JSOC and allied forces. 43 Quds Force operatives were either captured or eliminated. At a classified Pentagon briefing, the Secretary of Defense was direct. For 20 years, pirates thought they could operate with impunity because navies wouldn't escalate. They thought wrong. When you threaten American nuclear assets, you don't face law enforcement. You face extinction. The USS Colorado, resupplied and rearmed, slipped back beneath the waves to continue its mission. Somewhere in the depths of the Arabian Sea, her captain made a single log entry. Nuclear materials secure. Threat neutralized. Returning to station. But the message sent was bigger than one submarine or one pirate base. It was a declaration that echoed from the Strait of Hormuz to the South China Sea. America's nuclear navy is untouchable. Its supply lines are sacred. Anyone who tests it meets a fast, precise, and final response. In an era where America's adversaries probe for weakness, where criminal syndicates grow bold with state sponsorship, where the line between piracy and terrorism blurs, the lesson carved into the waters off Somalia was unmistakable. The United States doesn't just defend its assets, it obliterates threats to them, completely, permanently, without apology. Every hostile actor from Tehran to Pyongyang received the message. Every criminal organization from the Caribbean to the Strait of Malacca understood the new reality. Touch America's nuclear infrastructure, threaten the supply lines that keep our submarines prowling the depths, and you won't face proportional response. You'll face the full, unlimited fury of American military power. Because when pirates seized that ship, they didn't just steal cargo. They threatened the invisible shield that protects free navigation, global commerce, and democratic values across the world's oceans. And America's response wasn't just about one ship or one crew. It was about sending a message that would echo through history. We don't negotiate with pirates. We don't pay ransoms. We erase threats. If you stand with our sailors and believe in American naval supremacy, subscribe and share this story. Remember this, wherever the stars and stripes fly, they fly with the might of a nation that will burn the seas themselves to bring our people home.